Hi, my name's Greg Martyr. I'm the Executive Chairman of Capital Metals, listed on the AIM exchange. We have one of the highest grade mineral sands projects on the east coast of Sri Lanka called the Taprobane Mineral Sands Project. We have just announced we've formed a partnership with a local group, funds management group, investment group out of Sri Lanka in the last 2 weeks, and they've made an investment into Capital Metals for 14%. And so we've been looking for a partner for a long time. Very happy that we now have one.
Great, good to see you. And welcome to the UK, and thanks for bringing the weather.
Good to be back. I know, I
enjoyed
keep getting blamed for bringing this heat.
Hey, well, it's good to see you. Like, you obviously here to visit and talk to a few people, but
Yep.
let's stick with the matter at hand. You found some local partners. Why is that good?
In these developing countries, I think you always want to try and get somebody there who is well-connected, can open doors for you, have proper conversations, can read the tea leaves, but they should also make a financial investment. And it's been a long time for us to find one, and there's no real mining industry in Sri Lanka. So what I was trying to find is somebody who actually understood the resources space.
Right.
And that wasn't easy. And so through a bizarre connection, actually through our major shareholder, up until this new investment, Sheffield, Bruce Griffin, introduced these guys through a Finnish contact, I think it was. And they were founded by 3 Aussies. And they're actually 2 Sri Lankans and 1 Indian, but they were brought up in Australia, educated in Australia, worked in Australia.
Talk Australian.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, you can hear, it's quite funny, when they talk to me, they talk Australian. When they talk to the locals, it's a slightly different accent.
Yeah.
But which means I understand them, we get on very well, and they're not only well connected, but they're very financial, so.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that, because I think it is advantageous. I'm more across Africa and South America. You do need the local partners. So I think I'm happy for you on that one. Let's talk about the kind of commercial realities of where we are, okay? Because there's been a bit stop-start.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say,
Yeah.
right? Despite this being possibly one of the simplest mining operations going.
Yeah.
So remind us exactly what we've got today, where you're at with the project, and so the drilling results as well. So give us an update.
Yes, so we've told the market we scaled it back to the start-up, so we're just going to start up with concentrate, and the plan is to do that for 2 years. It was a 20.9 million capex. It's already coming in less than that. We knew there was a bit of fat in it. Very, very simple gravity, through 48 spirals. There's a nice shot of it in our presentation.
Yeah.
Just how simple it is, and that's a movable thing, so it can move down the beach, as you move a few kilometres from time to time. So, literally, we're digging up 17% grade. It'll end up being higher than that, but I'll come back to that. 17% grade, which is one of the highest grades in the world for mineral sands. Process it, pump it up through the spirals, and out comes 95% concentration.
Right.
Total heavy minerals. So, very, very low operating costs, and there's no slimes in it. Slimes is the clay, which is the bad thing in mineral sand. So very clean, and there's a little market for the concentrate there, but it'll be exported probably mainly to China, I think, or Middle East or Europe buyers as well.
And what's it being used for again?
So the biggest use is pigment. So in paints, in papers, and not that sexy, but there's some uses that go into titanium metals and some in the aerospace and the zircon products. But most of it's you look at global GDP. So
right. Okay. So it's easy mining. Where are we with you've got a couple of licenses. You need another one.
We've got 2 mining licenses, and we want to start in this area. It's a government-owned area, and we thought it was initially 47 hectares that we needed. We're probably going to take the lot. They got 200 hectares, because this drilling we've just been focusing on, it's been stepping out. So we put the application in for 47 hectares. We're probably going to increase the size of it. And so we just need to have an agreement, which we're processing with the government now, to effectively get land access, and then
Right.
that'll allow the mines department
Yeah.
to give us that next mining license.
Okay, so that extends the kind of potential scale of the operation. What else is the drilling told you? I kind of saw a video on Twitter. You're obviously drawing
Yes.
sands ready for testing, but what are you seeing?
So the resource was done in 2016 with 2,600 metres more or less, and 1,600 holes. So that the average of that was only 1.6. So it's pretty much going to the water table, and that was with a hand auger. You can't go below the water table with a hand auger. So we did a bit of sonic drilling in 2018, and that sort of went down to 14 metres. We were getting sort of 30% there. So now what we've done is an aircore rig. And we've just the first campaign of 170 holes for just over 1,500 metres. So it's 1,500 metres. Our whole resource is based off 2,600 metres. But this average went to 9 metres. Some holes went to 15 metres, and we were visuals only at this stage, so subject to assay. That we've seen over 60% grade in some spots,
wow.
but also continuity. Not everywhere. You're not going to get it everywhere, but you know, good grades heading all the way down.
So what do you? Okay, it's super shallow. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe explain the process as well, because I keep talking about being a simple process, and so have you. But in terms of that kind of extraction, remediation component, as you work your way along the land package, what's that actually look like?
So at the moment, our EIA is based on our resource, which is fairly shallow, 1.6 average depth, right? So that was the proposal, and it's approved, is to basically use a front end loader, and then take it to the plant, pump it up through that concentration plant.
Yeah.
And then a bench of 50 metres, north to south beach, bench of 50 metres and maybe up to 400 metres wide.
Yeah.
Take that out, take the black out, put the yellow back in, and then plant, rehabilitate, move on, and just keep moving down the beach.
Yeah.
But what happens around the world, as long as you've got it's amenable to it, so you need a fair bit of depth, is they dredge.
Yes.
And so you build sort of ponds around it, and then you dredge, which stays there a little bit longer. But at the moment, we don't have the approval to dredge, but we're talking to them and we're telling them this is what happens around the world. It's just convincing them it's not going to impact the water table.
Right.
And so we've got hydrologists working on it, and as I said, it happens everywhere. And the technical guys in the mines department, the GSMB it's called, are saying, okay, I can see it. This is not our major battle yet, but we're working on it over time. So then, this first area, the government area, the current mine plan says that we'll be there sort of less than 2 years. Going down to 10 metres, we could be in the same spot for 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And that's fantastic.
And so, obviously, with this sort of land extension, if you get this extension, as it were, and you go deeper and therefore and wider, etc., what was the equivalent life of mine be? I'm just trying to put it in conventional.
Well, I don't have the answer yet,
Right, okay.
because we need to redo the resource calc, right? And that's going to be probably another 2-3 months of drilling, and then another 2-3 months. You've got to do the mineralogy, you've got assays for the total heavy minerals.
So what's it now?
Assays.
What's it now?
So it's 10 years now.
10 years now. So it'll be more than 10 years.
Yeah. So
right.
if I had to guess now, what we've probably got, we have about 2,000 metres drilling that's not in the resource. Okay. Our resource is based on 2,600 metres.
Right.
So you can see how we're easily going to double the mine life.
Right. So some people, not you, could possibly do some math on that and work out how long this thing could be going for. Okay. Can I get to the money bit, which is right? So you're saying right. I think the government is saying right. We will let you do export and sell raw initially for a 2-year period.
Yep.
But during that period, we need you to build a processing plant to be able to sell separated and then concentrated.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about how that happens.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned one number there, but maybe break that down.
Yeah. So, in developing countries, value addition is a widely thrown around term. It's often a political term, and because people think higher revenues, more jobs.
Yeah.
Right? But it's often thrown around without understanding what it means. And in mineral sand, they don't know mineral sands mining. So they made a good effort in July 23 in this cabinet memorandum, which has effectively acted as the policy. And if you talk to anybody who was around that policy and the ministers then, they said, oh yes, you can do raw for 2 years.
Yeah.
But then they had some other little things in the policy and they messed it up, but only a little way. So technically we can't export concentrate today, but that's what we're working on. That's one of the big approvals that we need before going to actually final investment decision.
Right. So it allows you to kind of work out the economics, which allow you to work out how to fund this thing, and then go and get the funding in place. And you've got a kind of 2-year period after you start mining, we'll call it. Is that long enough for you? Are you going to be able to build? Because what sort of scale are we talking about?
So we're doing. It'll be 1.65 million tonnes. Once it's going on a full scale basis. But we'll do that. The initial plan was to do that in 3 stages. That's the capacity staging, and the other staging is concentrate to separation. So
in terms of what you're initially selling, and what was the kind of the market for that at the moment? What is
so we will sell a concentrate now for probably around $200 a tonne.
Right.
And we do 125,000 tonnes.
Okay. Yeah. So there's some money. And margin on that, do we know?
So, I mean, it's roughly 100% markup, and that's why the mineral sand space it's a fairly opaque market, and you get paid on the content of how much ilmenite, zircon, rutile you have. So my background is from precious metals and base metals, so I try to break it down to dollars a tonne. So we roughly would be getting sort of, it costs us $20 a tonne to mine, and we're getting $40 a tonne mined back in revenue. So that's where I roughly get my 100% markup.
Okay, and there'll be a few other little things in there which you need to get through, so people can discount themselves to whatever level. Okay, fine. Then we build this thing. We build this the plant as it were, and hopefully on a more 10-year plus life. So the kind of the cost of that initial capital will hopefully be more valuable for you over time. So that's all kind of cool. What are the other kind of red flags, or what are the other things in country that this in country team are going to do for you in terms of relationships with governments, relationship with locals, kind of smooth the waters, as it were?
Yeah. So the two things we need is that sorting out the definition of value addition, which they did their DD before they obviously put their money in. And the chairman of Ambeon is on the board of investment, so and board of investment is the one that's sort of driving the whole value addition discussion. Right. So you get a reasonable amount of confidence that they believe that we're going to be able to get this approval.
Okay.
So there's that other mining license. So once we got those two, we could start mining. The stuff that's in our control is all the pre-feasibility work that the COO Stuart Forrester is doing. And so we'll get that certainly within our timeline. Okay. Then there's land access is an issue, and the partners are already having discussions because they made a lot of investment in land, both from a tourism point of view and a commercial point of view. So they're already talking to some of the key guys. But the first land access we need, we've sort of got under control in that government block, and we could be there. I think I said 5-7 years just in this one block, whereas initially we thought we were there for 2 years. So So I'm not panicking about the land access issue yet, but because it'll just be a rolling process.
Right. Okay. And I guess in terms of time frames for all of this, it's hard to kind of work out when you kind of got kind of political process involved or. Money though to get you through those phases. So they've just put some money in now.
Yep.
So that's something. How much was that?
So they've put in 2, and Sheffield topped up to. They had an anti-dilution right, a 10% anti-dilution right. They put in just under 300,000. We did a little wrap, which was upsized to 400,000. So we've just raised sort of 2.7. They have an option for another 2 million, a 45-day option for another 2 million, which. I think it's going to get exercised from what I can see. Okay. That'll take us well through beyond the final investment decision.
Okay.
So we'll have a little bit of that left over to go to CapEx, but we're planning on raising 20 million for the capex for that launch,
Yeah.
and that's through a listing on the Sri Lanka
Right.
exchange.
Okay.
We're going to list our holding company there, and we've got an MOU with the Ambeon guys, which says 10 million equity for a 15% stake in that company, so effectively in the project.
Okay.
And then 10 million debt. They'll arrange the corporate debt. These guys have got more than 10% of 3 of the banks in Sri Lanka.
So debt and no off-take required.
No,
That's quite
no. We're
interesting.
talking to off-takers, but that was sort of a plan B, off-take finance, equipment finance of it. But now we're just going to talk to the off-takers on pure off-take terms, not looking for a prepayment.
And therefore not discounting.
Yeah. Yeah, and not locking ourselves in. It just gives us more flexibility on who we talk to.
Interesting. Yeah. And then what is the market like at the moment? Obviously, you talk about maybe selling into China, but potentially, or Asia more broadly. They're more likely.
Yeah, it's
customers.
It's reasonably soft. It has been soft for probably the last 12 months, and we think it'll be soft for another 12 months. The Chinese built a huge amount of capacity in the chloride pigment plants and the sulfate pigment plants, but ours is a sulfate. It'll go to sulfate pigment. Yeah. The ilmenite price is okay. The zircon prices come off a bit. Rutile prices come off a bit. But we'd forecast that. That was we used TZMI, which are the people that everybody uses. The banks use them to do our forecast back in 2022. And we talked to them again. And luckily, we didn't have to pay for them for an updated forecast because they said what we had was pretty valid. So. Our economics is still based on that, and just on the old NPV of the 10-year mine life, it was 155 million US was the NPV of the base case.
Right. Okay.
235 million of the upside case. That wasn't including any increase in resource. So you can imagine you double the mine life. I don't think it'll be linear, but it depends on how quickly you then mine it. But you have
sunk costs of the plant, etc. So you'd expect you to be able to continue at a reasonable rate. It's just, I guess, how much more drilling are you going to actually do?
It's a good question. It's a bit of a tedious process to get approvals to get drilling. So we're literally about to launch the second phase. I think we probably need another 2,000 metres before we'd say that's enough to do the resource. This is just in the northern part of the
and this will be RC
project
versus auger, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's kind of looks like it's going to move hopefully reasonably rapidly now. And the money side of things, you're talking a game of we've got the people who can bring the capital and the type of capital we need, because obviously cost of capital something like this is prohibitive sometimes.
Yeah.
And given it's not a kind of big mining country, I mean, there's a bit of education that they're indicating going on in terms of papering.
Yeah.
But in terms of build, how do you think that's going to be impacted by locals having a view on this thing? I mean, what's that kind of social license look like?
Yeah, it's a good question because we've been doing a huge amount of work. We sort of parked that work when we ran into the issues in country with our previous friendly minister that is now no longer a minister. But over the last, certainly since Stuart started, we've got a team of 3 community officers. We've sort of got an operations manager, he's a community guy.
Yeah.
The local elections have just happened and they're now voted in for 5 years. So now, there was a little bit of opposition before, but now with a bit of education, and just having bums on seats over there, we've got a huge. It's really impressive the support that we're getting locally. Some of the stuff. Stuart was there the other day, and they helped with this a local sporting carnival between all the schools that hasn't run for 20 years because they didn't have the money for it. Not a lot of money, and there it is. And the Tamil media are going around with Capital Metals hats on, interviewing them, and the big presentations of in front of 2,000 people. So, for people that actually were complaining are now asking for jobs. So that's the turnaround that you want. We're very happy with what's happening locally. You can never take it for granted, but. I think now with those elections gone and the politicians now want to generate revenue for their people and jobs, so I'm pretty happy about the social license at the moment. So yeah, I think it's coming together finally quite nicely, and now it feels like we're more in control of all of the decisions to get to that
Yeah, I think
construction
that
start.
consistency isn't there from you, and obviously with these partners on board, that'll help. You know, with this kind of stop-start type thing, people don't kind of know where they stand.
Yeah.
Well, maybe GM Shaw. Tell me more about Stuart though. What's his background?
So Stuart, he's an engineer, and I think he had about 10 years at Aluka, which is one of the biggest, Australian, really professional mineral sands producers, and then went to the US. And effectively, what he was doing in the US was taken over by Chemours, which, so he's built projects, he's run projects, he's a very passionate team person, and he's really putting the structures in place, and we're starting to hire better and better people.
What are his briefs
locally.
right now? What's he going to do for you in the short term? What's the focus? I saw, like I said, I saw that video.
Yeah.
All the different sands laid out and being dried, etc. And then they go off and get tested.
Yeah, well,
presumably.
half of those they've gone down to South Africa.
Right. Okay.
Right. So 540 have already been assayed.
But is that for you, or is that for potential off-takers?
No. Well, we can give that to off-takers too if we want. But they'll look at they'll look at the assays.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they'll look at the resource. I mean, some of them might want a little bit, but so the first step is the assays, which we know have been done. So we're expecting the report pretty soon, and you just get the THM, the total heavy mineral percentage, in all the intercepts of each of the drill holes. Then the next step is you've got to go and assess the mineralogy. So how much ilmenite, how much rutile, what's the blend all the way down, any impurities, that sort of stuff.
Right.
So that's the next step for us. So, but for Stuart, his focus is just building out the team. And there's a group called Access, so it's an engineering group, working with them, working on the logistics, working with Mineral Technologies, which is an Australian specialist in spirals and mineral sands projects, and so that's doing all that pre-feasibility work to get us to that final investment decision. So he's pretty busy on all those fronts, and that sort of freed me up to be doing more of the corporate and the fundraising discussions and partnership discussions and government discussions.
So something else, people watching this, right? He probably don't know. Don't know much about mineral sands, right? It sounds like a simple concept, but again, people know perhaps more about gold. They know more about silver, copper, etc. Why should they believe you guys have got the ability to execute from where you are now to where you will produce revenue?
Yeah.
What have you got?
Well, for a start, it's incredibly simple. There's no blasting, there's no chemicals. We don't have any slimes, which is like a clays in our deposit. Right? Yeah. Hasn't been any major changes in the processing technology for a long time. I mean, Mineral Technologies have a proprietary spiral, but the spirals, the sand just goes down like this, and the heavies go to the middle, the lights on the outside, and you have a gate.
At the top. Right.
It says, okay, push the yellow back to the beach, and then you run that, the
Is there
heavy.
a magnetic component to this?
Then that's the more expensive part, right? So those spirals get you the concentrate.
So that's really simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. And then the next stage, again, off-the-shelf technology.
By simple, I mean cheap.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Right. Low energy requirement, low cost. Okay. And what's the magnetic component?
Then the next stage is, so the ilmenite and the garnet have magnetic properties, and so basically, there's a few different ways you can do it, but rolling magnets, and it attracts the ilmenite and the garnet, and it leaves behind the zircon and the rutile. Yeah. And then there's a third stage, which is the electrification stage, where you separate the zircon and the rutile. So we may or may not do that third stage. Right. We'll definitely do the magnetic separation stage.
Right. Because that's the valuable stuff.
Yeah. So this thing is just you want to try to separate out a pure ilmenite. Yeah. And I shouldn't say the word pure because that it doesn't. It's never pure, right? There's always a little bit of impurities in it. But having a final ilmenite product, a final garnet product, a final rutile, but otherwise you've got blends of them.
All of those are saleable. All of them have value. All of them have margin involved, and then you chuck the yellow back on the beach.
Yeah.
Okay, seems like a win for everyone, doesn't
Yeah, yeah. So it's as I said, it's not that complicated. It's been done before. When you get a high grade like this.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons Stuart was so attracted to join us, he was running something in Georgia that was producing about 125,000 tonnes of concentrate.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll produce at the first stage. And he had to move 9 times more ore than what we're going to have to use.
Really?
So just think about what that does to all the more the plant you need, the moving, the operating costs. So
Yeah.
so that
So there's a little bonus for Stuart.
yes, yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, and I'm so happy we got him.
Yeah, no, sounds like. Well, look, Greg, lovely to see you in London.
Yeah.
Welcome for sure.
Thank you.
And it's nice to see things moving.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by this group that you've got on board. I'm more intrigued by the money they're bringing to the table and the ability to kind of maybe help in country with conversations and licenses and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So
they're a pleasure to work with.
yeah, sounds like. In fact, we might know one of the names. Well, if you're English.
Oh yes,
If you're a
you will.
cricketer, you might know one of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
names.
yeah. Well,
Go on then.
it does. I mean,
give us a name drop.
Well, Aravinda de Silva is one of the. He owns a third of Ambeon, which is the vehicle, and so the boys they co-invest with Ara. So
we're one of the world's best batsmen.
Yes,
to have played the game
and loves England. He's
he's
got a couple of houses here. He comes here quite regularly, and it's just such a gentleman, but really rolls his sleeves up.
Yep.
He's got a logistics company himself, so he's loving our logistical challenges.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, brilliant. Okay, well,
Good fun.
good to see you, sir. We'll see you again.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Matt.